Welcome to the first episode of Mysterium Fasces. I'm Florian Geyer, your host. This is a podcast dedicated to exploring the mysteries of fascism in Christianity. I'm here with several guests to inaugurate this new podcast series, which I'm very excited for. I'm here with Andrew Anglin of the Daily Stormer. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. This podcast will be posted on Daily Stormer, so look there for a regular avenue of syndication. I've also got Greve Hans of Iron March and occasionally Daily Stormer.
Hey, how are you doing?
Very well. Thanks for coming on, Hans.
No problem. Pleasure having you.
Well, I'm glad I can bring you some pleasure by having you on my podcast. And I've got Natt Danelaw, quote, best podcaster in the world, a youth extraordinaire. Thank you for coming on, Natt.
It's always a pleasure to be on.
Excellent. And we've also got Spiess of the Young Whites, but he's having some audio issues. So hopefully, here he's just come back, so hopefully he'll be able to... Excellent. Spiess of the Young Whites.
How are you doing?
Or formerly, I should say.
I've resigned.
Yes.
I couldn't hear you all for some reason.
Did you get too old?
Yes, exactly.
I didn't hear any... I couldn't hear you guys talking at all.
Okay, well, anyway, we're just doing introductions. So, Spiess, welcome to the show.
All right. Okay, so this has to happen on every episode. I can't come in normally.
Indeed. Let's continue. So, as I said, the show's purpose, just to lay down some bedrock of what we set out to do, is mostly continue the kind of style of work that I was doing in Nationalist Review Online. We're going to get into the details of what happened there later on. But to this end, it's going to be about Christianity and fascism, and that's going to be the guiding outline for everything we examine in the show. So basically, we're going to try to navigate the Kali Yuga and all of the incredible degeneracy and challenges and various sufferings that brings together, and hopefully both deconstruct and construct. So, without further ado, let's get into some coverage on the alt-right. So, in my last episode, I talked about what I think the alt-right's position should be on sodomy. That is to say, the last Nationalist Review Online episode. I'll post a link to that in the description. I highly suggest everybody check it out. But I think that it's important to get an understanding of what is the alt-right. So we've got the former leader of the alt-right, and we've got Andrew Anglin, publisher of the world's number one alt-right website, to talk about this. So, Andrew, Natt, and please the rest chime in at your discretion. So what is the alt-right? Is the alt-right a true movement, a political movement?
Well, I hope it is. I don't think it really is right now. It's kind of in the beginning stages of manifesting as a political movement. hopefully it's first an ideology, and then it can become a political movement. Right now, we don't have any politicians, so it's not really a political movement. We have political positions, but a lot of these positions are, being debated still, I guess. I mean, apparently people are still debating the faggot issue. I don't understand this. I side with you 100% on that. We don't need these people in our movement. We don't need them in our society at all. They're dangerous. And this is, I guess we'll go into this later, but this is not a religious issue. I mean, it is, I guess, for some people, but it shouldn't be. It's not exclusively a religious issue.
No, and
people are a serious problem.
That's without a doubt true. And if you listen to the podcast I did last time, most of those arguments did not come from religion. They were ones really of practical and tactical effects and natural law.
Well, yeah, and just the idea that a religion would come up with a rule for no reason is sort of stupid in itself. I mean, there was obviously a basis for the religious doctrines against homosexuality. And I mean, people talk about Christianity. Well, they had the same policies in pagan Europe about homosexuality. Himmler talked about this. You throw them in the bog. I think Natt has also famously talked about bogging the faggots.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the great misconceptions is there's this meme that, our ancient Aryan ancestors, the ancient pagans, they were, okay with homosex, as long as it was between men of unequal social status. That's true in very narrow circumstances in Rome and in Greece, but in all of Germanic society, homosex was absolutely not tolerated. And it's interesting to note that in ancient Germany, the death penalty was not imposed almost ever. The only punishment that the death penalty was utilized in was blood crime or treason against your clan, and sodomy, homosexuality. In all other instances, if you committed murder or a serious theft, they would just declare you an outlaw, and anybody could take revenge upon you if they wanted. So it definitely go on, Spiess.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just going to say with the Roman and Greek examples, it wasn't something that was widespread. Your farmer on the Roman frontier or something like that in his villa, lower middle class, plebeian, that sort of thing, it isn't engaging in sodomy. It's something for kind of the upper class, and and even then it's not really accepted, or it's just something that's done for I don't know, for just for pleasure, basically, among certain upper class men.
Yeah, and it was recognized as a behavior, not a quote identity as it is now.
Well, and that's sort of one of the things that I'm always railing against, and I think that it's hugely important to dispel, is gay is not a real thing. Homosexual, that's not a real fucking title. Homosexuality is in an act, it's a certain behavior. Sodomy is something you do and something you think about. So a sodomite, or a man who has sex with man, a sodomite is the most accurate term because it describes somebody who actively engages in a behavior. So our problem is with people who, have sex with men and people who think about having sex with men. Everybody else we don't care about. So applying the label gay is not useful in our circumstance. It's convoluted. It's a propaganda term of the left.
Yeah.
It's a social construct.
Indeed.
Exactly. Spiess mentioned the ancient Romans and Greeks, but what we have to remember is that there are no ancient Romans left now. They're all gone.
True. So, if the alt-right is in the nascence of a movement, the natal stage, but you say, Andrew Anglin, that it's an ideology. Okay, well, what are the principles of the alt-right ideology? Is it just a code word for neo-Nazi?
Well, I think it should be a code word for neo-Nazi. But no, I think it's a combination of white nationalist and traditionalist groups is what I've seen, that, a lot of different people have come together under this label. I'm a neo-Nazi and white supremacist. But, I think I don't think there should be a big tent, but I think there's people who identify in different ways have kind of adopted this label. And I think that it's, the basic concept is a return to traditional society. And I think that the main influence is fascism, various forms of fascism from the pre-war period.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. It definitely does seem to be a confluence of several different groups, but I think that primarily there are three main arteries of intellectual background that feed into the alt-right. You kind of have libertarianism, you've got fascism, and you've got traditionalism or reaction. And these kind of have coalesced together to form, the unholy creature, but the aegis of the alt-right. But yeah, so if the alt-right is a real ideology and it has real principles, let's just be clear, because I don't think everybody understands exactly what we mean. What are these principles, right? We're pro-white. But is there anything else?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have made lists of them. I think that the driving principle needs to be traditionalism and anti-Semitism, because all of these problems, all the things that we're reacting against, you talk about a reactionary, all of the problems that we're reacting against have been caused by Jews. I mean, we're talking about homosexuality, the entire homosexual movement. I mean, I don't know if Jews invented butt sex. If you go back and look, they might have. But, the concept of introducing gay identity into society is 100% a Jewish behavior, agenda. And it's the same with feminism. It's the same with pornography. It's the same with this concept of universal suffrage democracy. Any of these issues that we're kind of opposed to originate with the Jews. So, just like usury and pretty much anything you can think of, it originates with Jews. So anti-Semitism, I've argued, is the core principle of the alt-right, because everything else falls under that label. Virtually every single thing that we talk about is going to go back to the Jews. So, yeah, and I mean, I think that we have the principles would be the basic traditional principles of family and nation above, individualism.
Yeah.
May I come with a quick comment?
Please, go ahead.
Okay. Listen, I agree 100% that the entirety of the alt-right is essentially a reactionary, has a reactionary basis. There can be no doubt about this. However, it all gets very convoluted the more you dig into this matter. Let me come forth with an example here. One of the primary reasons why the alt-right in itself is having a hard time finding out where it's actually going, as a matter of fact, for the past 2 years, I've watched the American alt-right jump around like a chicken that got its head cut off. With that being mentioned, let's, for example, dig into the some of the reactionary aspects. Remember during Gamergate, right? When feminists were invading the territory of the male gamer, right? They got angry at that. And the critical points they used to further deconstruct the ideas of feminism was on terminologies like, well, you guys don't actually believe in equality. Essentially a reaction that still has a egalitarian basis. And this is something I have noticed through a lot of the reactionary ideas that is ingravated so firmly into the spine of the alt-right. For another example would be the ideas of anti-Islam. And when you ask people, well, why do you not like Islam? They will say, well, they treat women horribly and they kill homosexuals. And I think, in contrast to that, well, excuse me, sir, or madam, that sounds like things I could stand in for. I like that idea. But with
it's too bad Dr. Mayhem's not here, because he'd fucking agree with you 100%.
But no,
yeah, I have to agree with.
Go ahead.
I have to agree with Natt here, because I think I was never able to fully embrace white nationalism, because I saw a lot of them being like just another flavor of liberalism, basically.
Precisely.
It's it's not a complete, like, right, obviously, we want white societies, of course, but you don't get there by going back to an earlier iteration of, racialist liberalism or something like that. I mean, that's nonsensical in my view.
The problem... go ahead, Hans.
Yeah, the problem is the mentality. I mean, if you still have the same egalitarian mentality, you will go to the same conclusions. Just a bit different.
Yes, and I think that it's not even just them not having the egalitarian mentality, but it's that they don't have anything to replace it with. Because the thing is our leftist enemies, at least they have ideals, even if they're satanic, basically. But what happens in the alt-right is people say, oh, well, I'm anti-egalitarian, but they don't have anything to replace it. They're materialist, they're atheist, they're utilitarian at the end of the day. I mean, and at best they're a Nietzschean, and they kind of just construct their own meaning.
Yeah.
And so very few of these people have an overlying arc of interpretation, or not even that, but just a set of ideals or principles that are metaphysical, that are beyond reproach, that are absolute, that they apply to themselves independent of their own ego.
And here really, it really starts to boil at this point, because essentially what we are seeing with the alt-right as a whole, as a platform, is the fact that we have a bunch of liberal, spineless cowards. The very founder of this idea, I mean, this all has its roots in the European neo-right, no doubt about that. But crucially speaking, if you look at the ways that the entire society as we have now is criticized, they're not criticizing the essential mechanisms that is depriving the Western civilization of spirit as well as meaning. They're not looking at the very mechanisms that is destroying us. They're just saying, well, they're just looking at a few of the symptoms, for example, niggers and Muslims. And they say, well, this would all be good if we didn't have these few niggers and Muslims. They don't understand the crucial parts that is needed to be addressed to actually fix the machine, remove the cancer of Western civilization.
Yeah, and the problem is that people try to understand everything intellectually, and that when they try to do this, the only meaning they find in life is hedonism, materialism, all this stuff, ideology.
Good point.
And that's why you need religion, because religion is above your own intellect. I mean, you can look at a painting and you can understand this painting is beautiful. You don't understand why the painting is beautiful. It's beautiful independent of your own intellect. And the same thing it is with spiritual virtues. They are good independent if you understand that they are good or not. And the Jews, as Anglin mentioned, always work against ideals, spiritual ideas, anything that's higher than your own intellect. I mean, the Jews literally crucified Jesus, and Jesus was God incarnate.
Indeed.
If that's not symbolic enough, I don't know what is.
And I think that, Hans, this is absolutely correct. This is what the Jew is always seeking to do. Any ideology or ideal that brings you out of yourself into the service of another person, they want to corrupt. Any motivating force that means that you can't be bought off, you can't be reduced to economic transactions, you can't be controlled, they want to destroy.
They want,
and this will continue. They want the whole package. This will continue until the family exists no more.
It will continue even above that. They want a coffee-colored race of mutts, genderless blobs of fat. They want to destroy. They don't only want to dissolve Western civilization. They want to dissolve God's creation. That's why you see shit like transgenders and all that stuff. It's mutilating the very essence of what they are.
It's true.
If you're a man,
we're going to get into this more in depth. Yeah. Let's go back to the question of the alt-right. I think we're going to cover all of this in turn. Go. What do you want to say, Andrew?
No, I was just going to say that I think it is time we stopped being a reactionary movement, because this is all about being against things, and that's kind of what we've. And I've been trying to do this on the site, because if you're just against things, then you're necessarily going to be for something. Hopefully, I mean, hopefully there's the inverse of that, but it's much more. As far as a political ideology, it's much more beneficial as far as spreading the political ideology if you're talking about being for things rather than just framing yourself as being against all of these things. And I think that's kind of the problem with the concept of reactionaryism.
I agree 100%.
I mean, that is the thing. I mean, essentially, we're just looking for a minimalistic reactionary idea. We are looking for something revolutionary in its very essence, something to deconstruct and reconstruct. We're talking about philosophizing with the hammer to deconstruct and once again reconstruct.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, indeed. So back to the alt-right. So the alt-right has firm principles. We're going to say anti-Semitism, we're going to say pro-white, all of these things. So is anti-sodomy one of the core principles of the alt-right? Is this a non-negotiable thing that everybody has to agree to? Okay.
I think it has to be. I mean, that's why, I wanted to come on your first show here after you'd been had that issue and gotten silenced for your anti-faith views, because I endorse you 100%. I mean, there's no way that these people can exist in any healthy society. It's just not possible to have homosexuals in a society that you want to work properly. This breaks down everything, and you went through it all last time. I mean, besides just the fact that it's sickening, and they prey on young men, pubescent boys. This is their target, and they all are obsessed with pubescent boys. It's just a fact. I mean, you can look at any of the information that's available that was done, studies from the 70s and 80s. They're all obsessed with young boys, and they're a threat to them. So there's that, but it breaks down bonds between men. It makes it impossible for men to have a strong, loving relationship between each other. And even like I just said, love in terms of men. And this will be, oh, what are you, a fag? I mean, because everything turns into that. That any time that men get close to each other, everything turns into,
it's exactly the way the Jews work. Is they not only do they control the social relationships, but they control the language. The ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, they all understood love in a profoundly different way than we do. It wasn't this kind of sweet, gay, homo word that we think about it now. Love, they would routinely write to their friends and say, I love you.
Platonically.
There was different words, right? In Greek, there are 4 words for love. Storge, which is cuteness. Eros, which is like impassion, which you feel for a beautiful woman or a painting. It's your own ego. Then philia. This is love without ego. It's the love that 2 friends feel for each other. And as I said before, the Greeks only believed that men could have philia between one another because there was no sexual drive. There was no ego. They loved the other person. They cared for the other person independent of their own ego. What the definition of love is really in English when we use it, it means you're willing to sacrifice for the other person. You're willing to mortify your own will, your own desires for their betterment.
Yeah.
And so that's and as I said in the last episode, this is the foundation of what all success will be built upon. It's groups of men operating in a high trust environment who are willing to suppress their own will, mortify their own ego to achieve a higher end.
Yeah, and the sodomites refuse to do this. That's why they are sodomites. I mean, if they would feel love for the other person, they wouldn't act as they do.
Well, we said this and it's vulgar, but it's absolutely true. Friends don't fuck friends in the ass.
Yeah.
So, to the extent that the alt-right is anti-sodomy, I mean, is this a core principle? To ask pithily, ought we do purity spiral on this? And do people who disagree, those who believe that there is a place for sodomites who do not take the rigorous view that we do, are they anathema? Are they really alt-right?
I would
purity
say this.
spiraling is just a way to respond to cucks. I mean, this is just like, when somebody says you're a cuck, they say, oh, well, you're just purity spiraling. So it's a useless term, this purity spiraling. I mean, I don't understand what this, it just seems like an excuse to cuck. Like if somebody calls you a cuck, you say, oh, well, you're just purity spiraling. But I mean, I think that going back to this reaction versus being, active and positive, I think that we're pro-family. So yes, you would necessarily have to get rid of homos. If you're pro-family, you cannot tolerate homosexuals. They're a threat to every aspect of the family. So I think that, yeah, it absolutely has to be a fundamental principle that we are pro-family, and an aspect of that is going to be anti-faggot and not tolerating these people and their sick behaviors.
Exactly. And the whole purity spiraling shit, that's just an excuse for materialism rather than idealism, because the nature of idealism is that there's one thing that is this ideal. This ideal comes from God, and everything else is a sea of falsehoods. So they'd rather swim in the sea of falsehoods rather than try to achieve this ideal. And that's weakness. It's faggotry.
Yeah, and here's one of the things that I've found to be supremely valuable from Iron March. Was that Iron March has a myriad of different ethnicities, worldviews, movements, people, backgrounds, ideologies, but they're united in terms of the principles, the fascist worldview, the way in which they parse information, the way in which the world presents itself to them. And so for us to be successful as a large conglomeration of people, as an aegis of the alt-right, we have to get a few things down. We have to be able to agree on just the essentials. But how can we agree on the essentials when there are people among us who don't believe there is an objective truth to the universe? There are people who are materialist, who believe that we can never know the absolute reality around us, and that there's no absolute truth out there to be discovered, and that even if there was, the human mind couldn't grasp it. How can we agree on fundamental values if people think like that?
Well, that gets into something, huge, I guess, but I think that we have to agree that whatever your religion, I think you can agree on this. Or if you have no religion, that the natural order is the fundamental basis of human society, and you have to always go back to the natural order, or because everything that the Jews do is against the natural order.
Exactly.
And I think that we have to represent the natural order in everything that we do, and everything that we support has to be based on the natural order, and we have to be able to reference back to the order of nature in order to justify ourselves. And I think that I think that's an easy thing to agree on without saying we have to argue about different religions and so on. Because, there's
I agree with you 100%, and I say that even to this extent, that it does. I speak to members on Iron March and in other communities who are pagans, who are esoteric Hitlerists, who are any other religion, heretic dogs. But just because we have differing religious views doesn't mean that we cannot get along and cannot be comrades and cannot fight for the same goals, because we have the same set of core beliefs about the structure of the universe. And so that's the thing, is I would say you can even be an atheist and believe in natural law. But if you don't believe in natural law, like, what the fuck are you doing here? Fascism is adherence to natural law.
Yeah.
Well, anybody who does not believe in natural law is effectively a Jew.
Agreed.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is that if everything is meaningless and if there isn't an objective truth, then there is only hedonism. There's no meaning in life. You might as well kill yourself. But we're not killing ourselves, right? So our meaning in life is try to find a meaning in life. And we know there are certain things we cannot intellectually understand, like art. And if you go
beauty.
like to a mass, beauty. And if you go at a Christian mass, you see it's beautiful. I mean, you have choirs, you have all these processions, all that stuff. It's beautiful. You can't explain why it is. It just is, and that's why we need religion, because religion kind of blasts the mind out of the shell. It frees the mind in the literal sense.
We're gonna talk about this later. It's a very interesting, important subject. But I think that we've pretty well summed it up, unless anybody had any other comments.
Well, I have one comment. You see, individually, we all stand divided. However, as we all come together in the unified idea of fascism, from being one individual, we all form into one giant faggot.
Wow, nuts.
Very insightful. But yeah, that's the title of this podcast, the Mysterium Fasces. That's the whole idea behind the reason why we chose this title. Mysterium it's a reality that's beyond ourselves. Something that our mind cannot entirely come to grasp. This is the cosmic order. This is God. Fascism,
the body of Christ.
Exactly. Fascism is just adherence to this beyond in the ideological realm, in the natural world, in the way we govern our societies. And so fascism in itself is a reflection of the divine mystery.
That's the only place to see God, is in nature itself. I mean, in my view, I don't know if you would disagree with that or not, but I believe that the only way we can understand the concept of God is through the natural order.
Yeah, well, natural order is definitely it's a huge location. Wisdom, inexhaustibly comes from the natural order. But actually, we're going to do a reading of an article that's about to be published on ropeculture.org on the Iron March forums on Christianity and fascism. And that will clear up exactly what our position is on all of these issues. Now, before we get into that most crucial religious document, I've got another religious document that I'm going to read to you aloud here. Okay, one second. Now, I have before me a fatwa issued by Al-Seventh Son, Grand Mufti of the TRS Clerical Association. In the name of Allah Al-Rahman, the most merciful, the most beneficent, Al-Jabbar, the powerful, the irresistible, Al-Basit, the expander, the magnificent, the munificent, him who puts to the sword all non-believers, Allah Dul Al-Jalal wal Al-Ikram, Lord of majesty and generosity, I, Mufti, seventh son of the TRS Clerical Association, superintendent and president in all reverence and grace, to him Allah has trusted to lead the ummah of his believers, today issue a fatwa against the infidelist organization known as Al-Iron March. Al-Iron March and the despicable fascist mafia have made themselves enemies of all true believers through their disgusting lies about the most holy school. Therefore let them be cast out. All members of TRS are to disassociate with them on pain of the most excruciating banhammer and banishment into the outer darkness. Zyger al-Quebeci, propagandist and evangelist of their nefarious fascist forces, is Harzar, banned. Slavros al-Uzbeki, most nefarious mongrel dog of infamous renown and backstabber of great heights, is hereby Hazar, banned. Natt Danelaw, aka al-Hadibi, Memsi Wolf, is hereby Hazar, banned. And Florian Geyer, al-Kataluki, is included among their numbers, Hazar. All TRS members of the Ummah of the Prophet are to shun and keep away from them, the confines of the sacred school.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, it's straight from the horse's mouth. That is to say, I've been included among the number of Iron Marchers that are to be anathema from TRS. I submitted to this punishment because I had a principle of free speech regarding the running of my podcast, and Seventh Son had issued a fatwa saying that all Iron March members are not to be included in any podcast in the TRS radio network. I objected. I posted my podcast as regular, and it was taken down. And so I decided that, freedom of speech was an absolute, that I need to be able to talk about these issues with the relevant members of the fascist community, and that I wasn't going to allow myself to be censored, especially on questions of anti-sodomy and anti-usury. So, to that extent, I've been banned from TRS. I was a member there for 2 years, and I considered myself a member until I was banned, and I've been made persona non grata. So, as is clear, I'm not allowed to be on any of the podcasts that are hosted on that website, despite the fact that I still have got numerous friends who run podcasts there, who are part of sub-communities, etc. So, that's the situation, basically. We can talk about the implications and, the back and forth, but, I don't really have an angle with this. That's what's going on. I'm going to continue this podcast, Mysterium Fasces. It's going to be published on Rogue Culture and Daily Stormer, and things should be nominal.
Allow me to give a quick comment on this. I think I will say I must congratulate you, Florian, on essentially standing up to the higher ideals of fascism and the one true faith. With that being mentioned, I will say, if you did bow down to this idea, this implementation of pretty much putting, pretty much verbally castrate you, I think you might as well have ripped out all your teeth, because toe suckers, they don't need no teeth.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, no, I think it was a very honorable decision. I mean, for my part, I don't have a problem with TRS, but I thought this was...
Yeah,
nobody does. Nobody does. I think this was a bad call. I think I can say that, but, I think TRS is a great website, and I think they're going to, figure out that maybe this isn't the best way to go about things, because we do have to have principles. We have to have strong and hard principles, or we're doomed. I mean, if we do not keep to some basic principles, what do we have? I mean, that's all we have to begin with. It's the only power we have is in our beliefs and our holding to certain values. And I don't think that if we get rid of that we have anything at all. And one of those things needs to be support for basic morality, which is, being against anal sex with men.
Yeah. I want to come with one last remark on this matter. Principles, ideals, standards, these fundamental things of ideology or even as a worldview, is just as crucial as having a construction plan when creating a house. The ideals are the guiding line, the thin red line that shall guide you through to your goal. It is crucial. You gotta have it. If you don't have it, you will end up scratching your head. And again, here comes the headless chicken effect, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem with some people in the alt-right circle is that they refuse to do anything in real life. For example, they call national action LARPers or whatever, or they refuse to join the Nordic resistance movement if they're in Sweden. I mean, it's just silly. The shit will hit the fan in Europe very, very soon, and you need to be organized. For example, if you're Norwegian or if you're Swedish, join the Nordic resistance movement. It's easy.
Yeah.
Or Finnish. They allow Finns.
Yeah, or Finnish, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so I have no animus against TRS. I've got no bad blood for TRS. In fact, I have love in my heart for a lot of the people at the community. And, I wish them success. And I think that if TRS ever got to the point where they were willing to offer freedom of speech and freedom of expression in my podcast, I would gladly re-syndicate with them. God willing, that will occur, but we shall see.
I think they'll come around. But let me just say this real quick. Things are going to get heavy very, very fast, very soon. I believe this, no matter what happens. Because, is Trump going to win? I don't know. It seems like, there's a chance, but there's a good chance that won't happen. And when it doesn't happen, there's going to be a clampdown, okay? So if we don't have a... Did something just happen?
No, continue.
No, okay. Yeah, if we don't stick to what we believe in here, then we're all just going to get, blown out by this.
By this wave,
okay,
you were saying?
I keep getting these messages. I don't know.
Oh, yes, just ignore them.
You can still hear me.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, okay. No, we need to stick together here, and we need to stick to. I hate to keep saying values and principles like I'm the National Review, but that's true. If Hillary Clinton wins, they're going to start trying to shut this down, and people are going to be tested. So we need people that are hardcore. We need people who actually believe in this, who will stick together and stick to what we believe in, because this isn't always just going to be something where you post anonymously on the internet and you have no fear of consequences. There are going to be consequences, and there is coming a time where people are going to have to make decisions about what they want to do and what they believe in, if they believe in this enough to die for it or not.
Exactly.
And, we're getting close to the point where you're going to have to say, am I willing to die for this? Am I willing to go to prison for this?
Exactly.
And if the answer is no, then it's basically time to fuck off.
Yeah. And this, I agree with you 100%. I was just thinking about this week, and I've mentioned it in previous podcasts, because there's no pretense here. Yeah. What we're doing is not a fashion posture. It's not something we do because we're bored and we need a hobby. This is life. Your ideology should be the product of everything else you think and everything you do in your life. It should be an extension of who you are. And we do this because it is an extension of who we are. And I was going to talk about this later on, but I think it's important to bring it up now. Right now, we stand with all of the worldly accomplishments of our ancestors on our shoulders. Everybody in Europe who came before us is dead, except for us. If we don't secure a future for our people, and we don't ensure that our children grow up steeped in this milieu, and we don't continue these edifices, they die. That's it. Their virtue lives on in heaven, but their worldly institutions are gone, and their people are gone. If we fuck up, that's it. And so that's the thing. Are you willing to suffer prison? Right? I'm living in Canada, They've just passed laws that say that people can go up to 5 years in prison for anti-Islamic, violence, incitement, and stuff like this. Other countries in Europe, this is certainly the case. Are you willing to go to prison for 10 years because of hate speech?
Yeah, I can give an example of what happened in Sweden. It wasn't like 5 years or something, but it was a rather high sentence anyway. The guy who writes a lot for the Nordfront, the Nordic Resistance Movement's internet newspaper, he was arrested and sentenced to jail for 4 months or so for writing the word Negro father like 3 years ago. Now, this guy was the breadwinner in the house, and he had a family of, I don't know, I think it was 7 kids or something like that. So it was a rather large family. Usually, when you get such a low sentence, you just get one of these things you have around your foot that shows your position, right? But he was denied that because he was an evil Nazi, of course. Luckily, though, there was a campaign, and the family got enough money for food. But this is the thing that the system will use to harass you.
If you think that the system by any means is fair and square, and that somewhere in the current regime that there are people with good hearts and good intentions, you must think again. Every part of the current system, whether we are talking soldiers or we are talking police officers, they are hired goons by an establishment that have great intentions of harming you or your family, and they will screw from no means whatsoever to shut you the fuck up. So, with that being addressed, with the alt-right's idea of the big tent, to come back to this, and these people who think that they can sit and be armchair keyboard reactionaries and revolutionaries, thinking that we can obtain total Aryan victory through means of posting Pepe memes, and I have something to tell you, friend. You're not being revolutionary, and I think that, quite frankly, good sir, you are very disillusioned about what is going on, and you do not fully understand the consequences of what might happen to you. With that being mentioned, we need stronger people, and we need the organization of the entire movement.
Yeah.
These Jews are vicious, Paul. I mean, this is not. It's not a game. I've tried to make this point recently that this is not a game. I mean, these people will kill you. They are a hateful group of people, these Jews, and they're not. I mean, they understand that their entire system is at risk because of people like us talking about this. And I mean, maybe at some point this was looked at as a joke. It's not looked at as a joke anymore. This is not a game.
Yeah, we were going to at one point where we're going to have Weave on the show and have some good discussion with him. But if you want an example, like look at what he's had to deal with. And if you think that the system is not capable of destroying your life in just the same ways they did for his, I mean, that's the thing, is there's going to come a time when, as Natt says, posting Pepes will not be enough. And so how many people listening, how many people in the alt-right are willing to put on a vest and pick up a rifle, should it come to it? God willing, it does not, but likely it will. How many people are willing to be arrested? How many people are willing to get beaten up in a protest, get pepper sprayed, tear gas, sound cannons? You know, when Reds firebomb your house and make threatening phone calls to your mother at 2 o'clock in the morning. Are you ready for that? Because that's what these demanded.
Well, I can tell you too, from more of a deep state, I guess, angle, is these movements are always co-opted and they're always taken over. Now, that's not to say that people can't organize, because I will also tell you that a lot of these agencies are incredibly corrupt, and in a lot of ways there's no one at the helm of the ship. But, look at, because I came from, the conspiracy side, look at the way the 9/11 truth movement was totally just basically destroyed from within. I mean, these things are real. These movements, if they start to gain sort of mainstream acceptance, are face a lot of opposition. And that's why I think, this thing of the alt-right big tent, it's setting itself up for failure doing that, because you're just basically telling the shills to come on in and destroy us from within, more or less.
Especially when you're talking about Jews. Like, well, we can include Jews. I mean, this thing with Milo, this was fucking unbelievable to me. I mean, it just makes me sick that any single individual was like, yeah, well, let's bring this homosexual Jew in and help him. I mean, and look, we are being Jewed here. This is not, I mean, if people think that there's no federal agents out there already involved in all of this, I mean, the ADL organized a group to stop me and Weave from quote unquote harassing Jewish journalists. So, what are these people doing? This has high-level academics. It has a bunch of journalists from the New York Times and other, top publications, plus the former assistant director of the FBI. Together in this Jewish council to shut down anti-Semitism on the internet. So what is going on? I mean, are they involved with Milo? Are they involved with the rest of this quote alt-light? How could they not be? I mean, so when you see this type of stuff going on, when you see people trying to Jew you, you need to be aware that there's machinations going on. There are things going on beyond what we're seeing as far as this whole alt-right movement is concerned, because I guarantee you the Jews are very, very concerned about this, and they're not playing a game. So if you're playing a game, then you're going to get beat.
Exactly. 100%. Anybody else have anything to add?
I mean, for the listeners who don't know, could you perhaps tell them what happened to Reeve?
Anglin, you're probably more familiar with it than I am. I know the basics.
Well, he basically charged with something that didn't make any sense and wasn't really even illegal, because he didn't actually hack anything. He exposed a vulnerability. I mean, I'm not myself a hacker, so I don't know the details of it. But they were very angry at Weave for trolling, basically for putting things out there in youth culture on the internet that they were opposed to. He was involved in a lot of different things before he went to jail. But I mean, the FBI, I mean, they launched a giant operation against Encyclopedia Dramatica just because it was very popular, and there were a lot of things on there that they looked at as subversive and dangerous to their narrative. I mean, Encyclopedia Dramatica is like total shit now. I mean, there's still some funny stuff on there, but it's mostly old stuff. But anyway, I mean, they charged Weave with a crime that didn't really make any sense, and ended up putting him in prison for a year and a half. And then they tortured him when he was in prison. I mean, he was in solitary confinement for, I think, the majority of the time, or a huge portion of the time that he was in prison. And eventually, on constitutional grounds, it was just thrown out. They were like, well, this was a bad case. Lawyers eventually got him out of prison and that he had basically done nothing wrong. But this was 3 years of his life just stolen from him over it was political. It was political persecution. And I mean, you've got Bill White. Bill White was a little bit nutty, maybe, but I mean, they put him in jail for 17 years for emails, the quote unquote threatening emails that he says he didn't send. I don't know if he sent them or not, but I'd say that 17 years is a pretty long time to go to prison for emails. The guy who got convicted of assassinating George Lincoln Rockwell went to prison for 6 years. So Bill White gets 17 years for emails. And Matt Hale is in prison indefinitely. I think he got sentenced to 40 years because a federal agent in front of him said, "I'm going to go kill this judge," and he didn't say, "Well, hey, don't do that." I mean, that is basically the way it worked was that the federal informant said in front of him, "I'm going to go kill a judge," and because he didn't say, don't do that, don't do that, he was charged with being complicit in this planned murder that wasn't actually going to happen, obviously, because it was a federal agent. So I mean, they will go after anybody and figure out a way to lock them up if they can figure out a way. So I mean, people need to be very, very aware of this, that they take all of this stuff seriously, even if you're not taking it seriously, which should be a reason not to be all scared and act like a pussy, but to start taking it seriously.
Truly. All right, so we're one of the, as I mentioned before, the posting of this podcast, the debut of this podcast is going to coincide with the posting of an article on Iron March, and I'll put the text of it in rope culture. And it's part of the Iron March Religion Project. It's on fascism and Christianity, and it was written by me and another member of Iron March by the name of Akhenaton, or Stefan. And so I've got the text here, and I'm going to put it in the description, and we're going to read it aloud. And I hope that you find it edifying. With the increasingly polarized nature of right-wing politics in the Occident, many find themselves to be newly minted fascists, or rather they embrace the label which had always described their beliefs, left implacable until now. Fascism in its core is the conformity of the state and the nation it represents to the cosmic order, that all elements of life operate in the most optimal way determined by natural and divine law. Christians who embrace fascism can struggle uniquely with reconciling the truth of their faith to the truth of fascism. This is a struggle one need not undertake, for there is no disconnect. Christianity, in its orthodox form, constitutes the formal worship of revealed truth. This truth is discerned through the wisdom of tradition and the revelation of Scripture. For the individual, the Christian life is one of theosis. of becoming like God, of building virtue. Some will protest this assertion. Many pagans and other anti-Christian far-right types see Christianity as a fundamentally Semitic religion and mode of spirituality. They see it as corrupting the organic Aryan tradition of paganism and infecting Europe with a spiritual virus. They believe this makes it incompatible with the fascist worldview and the advancement of the European peoples, and that it binds one to cuckoldry for Jesus. This notion arises typically from a limited observation of modern forms of Christianity. Pagans et al. View Christians cucking in the name of Jesus and conclude that Christianity is a cuck religion. Not perhaps unfairly. This tradition could be said to start with Nietzsche, who observed Protestantism as applied in Germany and forms of post-revolution metropolitan Catholicism in France, concluded that the essence of the Christian ethic was slave morality. This issue is not recent but perennial. Speaking in his discourses in 1517, Machiavelli notes, quote, "Although it would seem that the world has become effeminate and heaven disarmed, yet this arises unquestionably from the baseness of men who have interpreted our religion according to the promptings of indolence rather than those of virtue." And furthermore, he says, quote, "If we are to reflect that our religion permits us to exalt and defend our country, we should see that according to it we ought also to love and honor our country and prepare ourselves so as to be capable of defending her." These expressions of the Christian religion compose impure, deviant forms of the original faith, that is to say, these bourgeois and Protestant heresies. True Christianity, which for brevity will be referred to as Orthodox Christianity with a small o, that is to distinct it from Eastern Orthodox communion, is the faith which is practiced universally throughout the ancient world. It did not see a serious internal challenge until the advent of the Protestant rebellion. The core of this faith, this correct thought or orthodoxy, today finds expression in pure forms of Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. Many would claim that these expressions are actually the purest form of religion, that modern Christianity is a doctrine that has gone through the process of catharsis, where it has shed away all the supposed pagan elements that it absorbed, and that what we're dealing with today, in its bourgeois and Protestant Reformation versions, is the most authentic version of the gospel. This is clearly and objectively false, as will be demonstrated in a moment. Throughout antiquity and the Middle Ages, there has always been a consensus on what the Christian faith is. From the British Isles to Scandinavia, across the entirety of Europe, to the reaches of Roman Africa and the Middle East, the interpretation and doctrine of the faith have been one and the same. They also applied not only geographically, but historically, as the single understanding of Christian thought has remained the same throughout the ancient and medieval period, in an unbroken chain of holy tradition. Someone born in a highly Protestant environment may be used to the idea that Christianity is some form of free-for-all, where anyone can pick whatever interpretation he may like of the Christian creed and scriptures, and that Christianity is in some sort of constant flux, where no interpretation is really solid, where no dogma that would be true for all Christians exists or can exist, where it's just all like your opinion, man. But this really wasn't the case. The writings of the most influential Christian authors from every single century of the Church's history have been preserved, and reading and studying those, we can very obviously notice the singularity of Christian doctrine and thought. What Christianity actually isn't up to debate. All it takes to find that out is a history book and a library full of patristic works. Aside from being questioned on its consistency and correct interpretation, Christian doctrine is also questioned on its authenticity. Many see that some of the more obvious elements in Christianity have been inherited from pre-Christian traditions, but they really don't understand how they got there or what they represent. In the Christian faith, there is a distinction between dogma, meaning truth in Greek, and praxis, meaning practice or works in the same language. Dogma refers to the metaphysics of faith, to its ideas about God, the cosmos, the meaning of life, salvation, etc. On this plane, adherence to the revealed truth from God is a must. Sticking to it in the same form which it was, quote, once delivered to the saints, is non-negotiable. Deviation from this tradition means certain eternal damnation. Practice, however, refers more to the outwards expression of the faith, to liturgical, canonical, and ascetic parts rather than the doctrinal, to the form rather than the essence, to the tools rather than the goals, means rather than the ends. Among other things, it refers to the various forms of symbolism, aesthetics, including iconography and architecture, musical styles, formal fashion, and certain other customary practices that are just a spiritual and rather than a dogmatic must, and so on. On the practical plane, there isn't really a necessity of form. The practice is allowed to organically grow and take a variety of shapes that developed from a variety of cultures and periods. Deviating from these forms isn't and can't really be called a heresy. but it's generally agreed among the Christian communities not to deviate from them without a really good reason, especially since most of them are 2 millennia old. So with this fanatical adherence to the purity of doctrine, where do these alleged pagan elements come in? They come into the practical field. In many cases, the church culturally appropriated some external forms of Christian worship, or pagan worship, and changed its meaning to apply the worship of Christ, as has already been described. This is not a deviation from the faith, as the core essence of the Christian doctrine remains the same, while a new outwards tool is applied to adhere to that same unchanged essence. Both the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches have most of their aesthetics picked from one aspect of Roman culture or another, with added Germanic influence from the Occident and Slavic for the Orient. And it's there where the supposed pagan influence of Christian spirit begins and ends. As we established, every single Christian doctrine can be traced through its authors back to the first centuries and the apostles. There have been no intrusions into the Christian dogma from the pagan side. Any attempts to claim otherwise ends with the arbitrary pickings and choosings, which doctrines are somehow authentically Christian and which are not, without any factual evidence of when and how these doctrines were included into the Christian tradition, without previously being there or in the Old Testament. On the societal level, many of the ideas and policies fascists advocate are built into the philosophy of this religion. The idea of the distributivist economy, or a market which serves the people and the common good, is the official position of the Catholic Church. Organic states based on natural organizations of kinship and nationality find themselves entirely at home to the same degree within the confines of Orthodox thought. Medieval Latin Christianity fostered the development of the feudal polity, what some argue to be the best example of an organic state, which is undoubtedly fascistic social schema. In the Slavic world, the notion of sobernost, deeply rooted in Christian virtue, is the basis of most Orthodox nationalist thought. The Christian state follows the principle of conformity under the kingship of Jesus Christ. The Lord Jesus Christ is the Logos, or the Word of God. This theology is specifically enumerated in the first chapter of the Gospel of John. Quote, "In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Christians believe he is the organizing mind behind the universe, the cosmic font of all order and right accord. For a Christian, then, one can say fascism is a requirement, that the ideology emanates directly from the theology. This is what led Hitler to proclaim at a speech in Passau on October 27, 1928, that, quote, "We are a people of different faiths, but we are one. Which faith conquers the other is not the question, rather the question is whether Christianity stands or falls. We tolerate no one in our ranks who attacks the idea of Christianity. In fact, our movement is Christian. We are filled with a desire for Catholics and Protestants to discover one another in the deep distress of our own people. On the individual level, the Christian life is the same. The Christian ought to strive for the constant cultivation of virtue, the avoidance of vice. It is quite literally anti-degeneracy the religion. The notion of personal error and evil is so egregious in this understanding that God had to die on a cross to redeem it soteriologically. It speaks mountains about the importance of good personal conduct. To follow Christ, one is compelled to take up their cross, to embrace suffering, struggle, obtain virtue, to sacrifice of oneself in the service of God and neighbor, racial or otherwise. Christians even believe eschatologically that Jesus will come back and put to death all degenerates, and such will be the fury of his wrath on the day of judgment, that, quote, "his blood will flow from the winepress, as high as the horse's bridle, for 200 miles. That's the Apocalypse of John 14:20. One of the primary goals of fascism as a worldview, if not the primary one, is freeing society from the individualist principle and the notion of egocentrism. From the idea that man is an atomized individual whose goal is to achieve happiness by pursuing his self-interest, and that society is merely a platform for achieving that. To this idea is contrasted the ideal of the organic society, where a man is called to serve the truth in his community. And while most ancient traditions were in many respects opposed to the individualist and materialist principles, no tradition comes as close to upholding the organic principles as the Christian faith does. The most important law, love God, ties men to complete service of the cosmic order. The second fundamental law, love your neighbor, is the best possible summary of the organic principle. That is to say, the organic state. This commandment is nothing more than a demand for man to abolish his own self-interest and self-centeredness, to dedicate his entire being to serving his comrades. It is the idea that one's purpose in life isn't to see how much shekels he can squeeze out of his surroundings, or how much good he can do for his own community. This is why the terms service and sacrifice are so sacred in Christian thought, Because there is nothing more great than to give up your own interests or life in the service of the divine truth and justice. But wait, you say, doesn't love your neighbor mean cucking against your own people in favor of some third world dump? Why would it? What is said by that commandment is to abolish personal interest, and to completely remove greed from interpersonal relations. What it does not tell you is to screw over one of your neighbors for another neighbor, as if that is somehow just. There is everything just about freely sacrificing yourself for somebody else. But what can be just about letting someone else drown for the sake of someone third? Nothing, obviously. Christ himself exhorts us otherwise in the 15th chapter of Matthew's Gospel, verse 26. And he answered, "It is not fair to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." That is exactly what filling up a country with a hostile foreign population is. It is an attack, an obvious harm done to the native population around you. In what universe can destroying the native population of a country be reasonably considered as loving thy neighbor? The same applies to the notion of loving your enemy. It's basically the same commandment. In English, this may need explaining, but in other languages like Greek and Latin, the meaning of this is clear from the text itself, as though languages have a clear distinction between the concept of a personal enemy and a public enemy, between one who is threatening our personal interests and one who is a threat to our community and justice at large. When Christ tells us to love our enemies, he uses the same word designated for the personal enemy. That's why this is essentially the same commandment, because it also calls men to renounce our personal interest and not take grudges, pursue personal vendettas. In fact, the famous turn the other cheek statement refers to the practice of challenging someone to a duel in ancient Israel, where a slap on the cheek is the challenge itself, and here Christ commends his followers to refuse such a challenge by turning the other cheek. None of this says anything about not defending yourself or your community. In fact, your community is the sacred service to others mentioned above, and it has been seen this way for the entirety of Christian history, since the time of the apostles. Some of the most ardent fascists of the 20th century have been devoutly religious, the most famous of which is Corneliu Codreanu of the Iron Guard. They were a devoutly orthodox organization, through and through. Who can doubt their bona fides as true 1488, gas the kikes, race war now, boots on the grounds approved National Socialist movements? Who will stand here and say that they are not fascists because they were Christian? Who will say they did not care about the race of their people because they worshipped a kike on a stick, as our detractors call it? The religion that they practiced was the same one practiced by the Knights Templar. It was the same one practiced by Charlemagne and Justinian, and it was the same one practiced by the apostles. The religion which has been ascribed, which enabled Europe to thrive, whose great waters flow freely into the well of fascism, is true Orthodox Christianity. Any other form is heresy, is perversion. The historical record speaks well for itself about the success of this religion. The effectiveness of it is there to observe if anyone cares to look. Jesus Christ is the cosmic order. Conformity to him is fascism. Ave Christus Rex. Salve Regina Coeli. So, any comments?
Very well written.
Yeah, very good article.
Yeah.
Man, let me tell you something now, Florian. When that article gets put up, I'm gonna read it 7 times.
Wow. I'm very flattered, Nat. Yeah, that was kind of long-winded. I imagine you need some time to kind of sit in and think about it.
Yeah,
but this article...
Mr. Simon.
Yeah,
Need to meditate a little bit after that.
Yeah, this article describes what I would say is the foundation of what this podcast is going to be about and the way we think about the world. The interface between Christianity and fascism, that is to say, the Mysterium Fasces, the mystery that exists in the confluence of these two factors. And so I think it's very important to have this resource and to have this explanation and to have this position out there, because so many times I've had people say, oh, this fascist doesn't he know that fascism is opposed to Christianity? What a stupid cuck. And I mean, these people have been gaslighted. These people have been gaslighted to think that fascism is somehow opposed to Christianity. I mean, the Jews do it everywhere. They're always trying to drive a stake between National Socialism and the Christian ideal, because they know that Christians are some of the only people who are militant in the modern days about their beliefs. A good example, I remember I was watching Man in the High Castle, that series on Netflix, and the Germans occupied the United States and they banned the Bible. And I was sitting there with my brother, and we were just like, this kike bullshit. You know, the National Socialist Party of Germany bans sacred scripture. Anybody who has any historical context, any knowledge about what they were really doing, what they stood for, what they promoted, must realize that this is bullshit on the face of it. But this is what our enemies want us to believe. They want us to believe that there's a hard divide between these two ideas.
I mean, they've been trying that for quite some fucking time. I mean, even like back during the Second World War, the Americans was trying, very, very hard to propagate this idea that Christianity and National Socialism / fascism, that doesn't go hand in hand. It's completely opposed to one another. It's this twisting of narrative of the Bible, right? It's really this twisting and corruption. So.
I mean, another thing that's very important to realize is that the Bible says that God is truth. So what Christianity basically does is to worship truth.
Yeah, Jesus Christ says this directly. He says, "I am the truth, the way, and the light. There is no way to the Father but through me." That's quite and that's why I say it. Conformity to Jesus Christ is fascism by definition.
Oh, the issue I see with this, like fascism as anti-Christian is, and this is, you can see this in the broader alt-right, is a lot of the people that spin this narrative. If you read them, it's the same thing they would have been saying or were saying, 6 or 7 years ago as Reddit tier atheists. It's just with slightly different rhetoric. And what's the motivation? And this is why I think it's important to look at, in this sphere, what's someone's motivation. Yes, Matt?
You really just touched something here that is something that we have already been talking about, but something that keeps coming again and again is the fact that this negative stance in Christianity inherently comes from this pre-programmed idea of liberalism inside their mind. They're still using liberalistic argumentation. They still understand only things from a liberal, fundament. So when that is being clarified, that is why they have these convoluted, predispositioned ideas under the pretense of liberalism. They're still liberals.
Absolutely. That's why it's something I was trying to communicate on the TRS forums for a while, and I wasn't really quite. I couldn't quite articulate it before I started reading some Iron March stuff. But it's you can have you can have rightist rhetoric, but you can still be a liberal, and that's the problem with the alt-right. It may be cloaked in some sort of right-wing or racialist rhetoric, but at its core, it's liberal essentially.
Yeah. I mean, plus another thing we have to understand is most pagans, I'm saying most pagans, now I suppose there are some exceptions in Nordic countries or whatever. I mean, you have these Americans who are half Negroes and they're Nordic pagans. And the thing about paganism is that they don't practice their religion. If they don't practice their religion, it's not really a religion. It's just Viking fetishism.
Yeah, that's a good point. All religions have cultic activity.
Exactly.
If your religion is just a set of ideas that you hold in your mind, then it's not really a religion. There's a maxim in theology, and I repeat it, and I'll repeat it again. It's a lex orandi, lex credendi, lex vivendi. It means the law of prayer is the law of belief is the law of life. What you believe informs how you pray, and how you pray informs how you live. They're all connected. And so what you believe in terms of your spiritual orientation and the way you express that determines how you live, which determines what your political ideology is in an optimal world with people who are of good character and principles. It's a natural extension. It's not.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And
that's why you see leftists being obese as well, because they don't really have any ideals, or they're really skinny, or they at least do not try to do anything about it. They have no standards, no ideals, no will. They're like vegetables.
Yep, exactly. Well, it's because they're nihilists. They're spiritually dead. I mean, this is the idea of being in a state of mortal sin, is that you die spiritually. Your spiritual life is it ceases to exist. You deviate yourself so much from the cosmic order that you're outside of its fold. You've lost the divine economy.
And Ignatius of Loyola wrote something about this as well. He wrote that someone who's wicked will find a sort of joy in doing more wicked stuff. It will, the wickedness will kind of absorb into him. While someone who is trying to do good, when he does good, he too will feel this goodness being absorbed into him. But if a wicked tries to do something good, or if he sees something good, something happens. It's like a small exorcism, It's a reaction against it. Oh, this is bad. This is a Christ cuck, all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I think
physiogeny is real.
Exactly. So very good discussion, guys. We've run past our first hour. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. And so we're going to take a short break, and we're going to rejoin you after some musical interlude. Stay tuned.
Tempus est Iocundum, o virgines, modo con gaudete vos juvenes, totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Cantat Philomena, sic dulciter, et modulans auditur in Tuscaleo. Totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Flos est puellarum quam diligo, et rosarum quam sepe video. Totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Mea me confortat promissio, mea me deportat negatio. Totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Virginitas, mea me detrudit simplicitas. Totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Sile Philomena pro tempore, surge cantilena de pectore. Totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Tempore brumali vir patiens, animo vernali lasciviens. Totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Veni, domicella, cum gaudio. Veni, pulcra, iam pereo. Totus floreo. Iam amore virginali totus ardeo, novus amores copereo. Novus amores copereo.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of Mysterium Fasces. We've had a great first hour. Unfortunately, several of our guests had to leave. Andrew Anglin, Spiess, and Natt, though we hope that our dear leader will return to us shortly to provide more incredible rhetoric and insightful personal commentary. Continuing with the previous theme of the hour, I'm going to have a little discussion on virtue and the difference between biological and spiritual virtue. And then we're going to get into, the usual tradition inherited from Nationalist Review Online of looking at some articles for this week. So, in my opinion, there is kind of biological and spiritual virtue. Biological are actions where their benefit is limited purely to the material or the physical realm. These are things like acquiring wealth, being in good physical functioning, being in shape, being clear-minded. I think the highest of all of these physical virtues is the fathering of children. You fulfill your biological telos, your purpose in life. But these are always subservient to spiritual virtues, the spiritual vigor. These are things like courage. These are things like love, like hope, like faith. These are things which exist above the confines of the material world, and they interact with it, but they don't derive from there fundamentally. And so there's a difference between these two. And men who are materialist, the highest virtue that they can hope to achieve is the fathering of children. Men will die for their families, even base ones. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find one who wasn't. I mean, there are some out there, but very few. And we see this all throughout nature, right? Animals are willing to die to protect their offspring. So I think there are a lot of guys that when they look at politics, that's kind of the analyzation they make. Well, they want a political situation that's favorable to themselves and to their offspring, right? They just want good material conditions. And this is good, and this is what we ought to achieve. I mean, the idea behind politics is that we're trying to affect the physical world, right? We're trying all this. But that's not enough. We need something more than that. We need some spiritual virtue. We need a higher idealistic end. Something that's not rooted in the passing mores of worldly affairs. Because one day, too, our race and our civilization will pass away. Just like every other one that has walked the face of the earth. It might be in 10,000 years. It might be in 20,000 years. I can't tell you when it is, but one day we will fade into a dust, and the memories of our ancestors will crumble. All except virtue, which is immortal, will dissipate. And if we fail now, that day could be a lot sooner than we might like to speculate. So, relying on biological virtue, natural virtue, that's not enough. Because these things, they're ephemeral. They're temporal. They're not static. They're not eternal. So we need to place our faith, we need to place our heart in something that's beyond this. And so this is the notion of idealism versus utilitarianism or pragmatism. That we act in a way that's outside of the world. That we're against time, that we're above time. Right? That we don't allow this Kali Yuga to dictate the way in which we behave. That quite literally we live as if, it was 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago. Right? We're not in the current year. For us, right, it doesn't fucking matter if it's 2016.
Yeah.
And so, that's the people. If people tell you, oh, well, that's reactionary, that's backwards. Oh, get into the 9th century. That's a compliment because they had a much firmer grip on these ideas than we did.
Yeah.
And this is even why you see some guys on the right that they find valor in ISIS because at least they have an ideal system that they cling to and are militant about. If for nothing, they might be a tool of Israel, but they do throw fags off of rooftops. They do act out on what they believe, right? So
ISIS are pretty much a criminal gang by this point. I mean, they're selling drugs. They're kidnapping people in order to make profit out of it. They're kidnapping their own subjects to make profit out of them. That's just retarded. That's not how a good
rule acts.
It's a tool
of Israel, but still.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the whole problem...
But it's that force. The force that enables this is the jihadi mentality. It's Islam, right? Not them. Right.
Well, yeah, maybe I actually don't know, probably. But, I mean, the whole thing that underlines all this, it's a sort of will to power, just for power's sake. And if it's just power for power's sake, you do not have a goal with this power. I mean, all power, all means must be directed at something. Otherwise, it's just a chaotic mess, and you just want to climb the ladder, kind of what we have now. I mean, the politicians don't care about high ideals or whatever. They just care about having their own little share, their own little title, and sitting there careful and feeling important and letting their pride speed on about how good job they're doing. And this is very, very harmful. I mean, it must be directed towards an ideal, towards the truth. Rather than a will to power, we should have a will to truth.
Indeed, I think that is the more important thing. All authority, all power exists for service. This is a
Exactly.
fundamental Christian principle. Men are not superior. Men are not more powerful for their own sake. This goes to the individual as well. If you're smart and you're strong, if you're better than, Joe Pancake, if you think yourself a superior specimen objectively, well, you have these faculties to serve your fellow man.
Yeah. Plus, if there's just will to power, there's no meaning in life at all. I mean,
Indeed. Well, that's
exactly.
the thing, and it's because it's solipsistic, it's sophistry, right? And will to power, it basically says, well, if God is dead, if nihilism reigns in the social sphere, then it's up to man, through the use of his ego, to transcend this degeneracy and establish his own existential kingdom, his own transcendence, right? And so they say, oh, well, should be based on beauty and on truth, on whatever, but it's ultimately up to man's own ego. Well, if this is the case, then we could say sodomy is the ultimate act of will to power. Because through sodomy, you're imposing your own ego, your pleasure, your own framework through an unnatural action on the natural world. You've completely transcended the trappings and bounds of natural and moral law. This is the whole idea behind the left-hand path of the occult, is that you don't need, you go above, around, right? You try to get higher by breaking the law. It's sinful by definition.
And in a way, this is exactly what the Jews are trying to do as well. What they are doing now is to break down everything that's created, everything that's a part of the natural order, so they can reign over the ruins. I mean, they can rule over a coffee-colored race of mutts and genderless blobs of fat, but they can't rule over someone who has ideals, and that's the nature of them.
Exactly.
I think there was a National Socialist by the name of Pavel Rasmussen that I used to put a lot of stock in. I still admire the guy a lot. I think he's a highly intelligent, but one of his famous quotes that I really liked, and this is coming from quite as far along in my journey as I am now, and he said, as National Socialists, we avoid no other ethic than the ethic of nature, and we know only one mortal sin, to try to revolt against this ethic. Now, previously I kind of had a biological materialist kind of deterministic view, and that I thought that was enough. But I'm kind of coming around to the idea that that's kind of empty and it's not quite enough.
Yeah, so this is the discussion. Why is religion or ideals even? You can be a Stoic. I think that if somebody was an agnostic Stoic, they could easily be a fascist. But why do you need ideals? Why do you need this concrete philosophy that you live? Well, it's because this is what's going to motivate you when you've got nothing going for you in material life. This life that we've chosen, it's one of suffering. If you're a serious fascist, you're going to suffer. We operate even here, it's implicit. We operate in pseudonyms. Because we know that if we're doxxed, if we come out and everybody can attach the label of fascist or National Socialist to our face and to our name, that fucks our lives up. You can't get into university, you can't get into seminary, you can't get a job. You can't, do all of these real things if this is if this is attached to your name. So this is a life of suffering. And the time will come when the pseudonyms drop and when it doesn't matter. But for now, and that's the thing is we have to, when you're in those depths of despair, when you're sitting in a prison cell because the political police have, arrested you for hate crimes, right? And you're doing 5 years. What's going to keep you going, right? Not your toaster.
Exactly.
Right? And your family's not going to keep you going because they're going to use them against you. You need economic factors to provide for the well-being of your family. Yeah. Right? It's ideals. It's your principles.
Yeah.
It's, that no matter what, I can never surrender. That it's death and torture are preferable options to cucking.
Yeah.
And that's white jihad. That's what it means. Right? The struggle. And the struggle, that's the brilliant thing about jihad, Evola writes about this in his Metaphysics of War. Jihad is not a mental struggle. Or it's not, a physical struggle. It's first a spiritual one. You conquer your heart, you conquer your mind, and then you conquer the enemy. And so if we say we're engaging in white jihad, if we're engaging in holy war, right, that what we're doing is fighting for the purest and most essential principles of our people and of our civilization, right, then you must be willing to accept all of this.
To slay the outer you must first slay the inner you.
Exactly.
Now, the thing about all this is that everything is a huge system. Everything is a huge machine. And if you don't fit into the machine, if you don't become a good little cog, a good goy in the machine, well, then you get crushed. They try to crush you.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah. And if you're not, and if they're not trying to crush you, then you're not doing anything that matters.
Exactly. I mean, if
that's a good point. I was just saying this to my friend, is the police don't use non-lethal arms on people who are threats to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
these people hate everything that's pure, everything that's organic, everything that's not intellectualized, mechanized, and part of this machine. The only communion these people want you to take is those antidepressives you take before you head to sleep or before you get up in the morning. That's the only sort of communion they want you to take.
Yeah. We talked about this before on NRO. The idea that, we're dealing... from a Christian perspective, it's we're not dealing with powers of flesh and blood, but principalities and powers, with spiritual enemies, with evil in high places.
Yeah.
And that our struggle, therefore, cannot be rooted in the material world. It has to be transcendental. That
Exactly.
in order to fight our enemies, we understand, with what we say, John Chrysostom says that the synagogue is the house of demons.
Indeed.
Christ calls them, the Jews, the synagogue of Satan in the book of Revelation. Right, we're dealing with, and he says directly of them, you are the sons of Satan because you do his work. So Jews, and any other person who does the work of evil, that does Satan's work, is his son. And so what we have to do is we have to fight first spiritually, win spiritually. That means self-mastery. Right, that means that we're disciplined, that we engage in virtue.
Yeah.
Right, that we don't, we all have our sins, we're imperfect. But the best way to overcome this, whatever it is, if your sin is sloth, you don't go to the gym out of gluttony, you eat too much or you drink too much or whatever, right? Pride, you don't understand, you're not willing to take criticism, you're not willing to take advice, all of this, right? We have these issues, we each have these burdens, these crosses that we have to bear. The best way to improve in virtue, as the saints would say, is just pick your biggest one and attack it vigorously. If your sin is gluttony, stop eating. Fast, limit the amount of food that you do, etc., right? If you want to know how to overcome pride, worship God. Because the true definition of humility is not, like this groveling, sneering, debasing of one's essential dignity to aggrandize another. That's perverse. It's Jewish. Humility is knowing the proper order of all things and knowing where you are in relationship to everybody else. So it's
Exactly.
seeing things truthfully. And so, of course, when we look at God, well, he's infinite and we're not.
Exactly. I mean, how can you be humble to God if you debase yourself? I mean, if you have a certain position in the cosmic order, then you're not humble to God if you refuse to take it. You're prideful, if anything.
Exactly. And that's one of the things is people don't. This is the cucked Christianity, right? It's this passive Christianity. It's lost its militancy. If you're a father and robbers break into your house and you say, "Oh well, I don't want to use violence to defend my wife and children, and I'm just going to phone the police and hide in the closet," That's sinning.
Pathetic.
You're sinning. That's mortally sinful. Right?
Yeah.
You have a duty to use violence if necessary to defend your household.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Eternal damnation awaits you. Seriously. If you fail in your duty as a father, if you shirk violence because of cowardice, if you need to use it, this is mortal sin. It's a ground for eternal damnation.
Exactly, but let James carry Florian. He's speaking so much.
Oh, no, that's cool. That's cool.
Oh, sorry. Please go ahead, James.
Yeah, the whole self-defense thing and the cucked Christianity, and I can only speak for American Protestantism, but it's such an issue that some Christian YouTuber felt it necessary to write a song justifying self-defense in the face of death. Because he's a big gun guy. He's into the whole tactical scene, and he's deeply Christian, and he's pretty talented on a piano, singing, whatever. But yeah, this is such a common debate among American Protestants that you'll see it raging all over the place. And this guy, he's a pretty big tactical YouTuber, and he wrote a little song justifying your right to defend yourself against an assailant. And that blows my mind. And that was one of the things, that kind of put me out of the church for a lot of years.
Yeah,
That's entirely understandable. I mean, no reasonable person would think that such perverse pacifism is in any way good.
and that's
Only
the thing.
an
And
idiot
I have
thinks.
sympathy. That's we talked about this in the article that a lot of people get this idea that Christianity is cucked because they run into cucked Christians, and reasonably they conclude, oh well, Christianity must be cucked. I mean, it's not difficult to see where they get this idea from. And to those people out of there who are listening to this broadcast who think Christianity is cucked, that it's a drain on who we really are. I already read the article, so I think that lays out the case quite succinctly, but it's not. It's not. The religion that our ancestors practiced, that sustained all of the medieval and ancient world. 1,500 years of fascistic civilization, right? Of tradition.
Yeah,
of,
and that's
of
one of the
greatness,
things.
right?
That's one of the things that, admittedly, the whole time that I was kind of maybe not kike on a stick, but I didn't think that Christianity had anything left to offer us, and I kind of, well, the cat is out of the bag. Maybe this is what Christianity really is, but I mean, the thing is that, like you said, for 1,500 years, somehow Europe was Christian, and we sailed around the world wiping fucking brown people off the face of the earth and enslaving and colonizing them. So somehow, for 1,500 years, we managed to be Christian and be pretty fucking badass at the same time. So it's a modern phenomenon, all of this.
Exactly, James.
I've had to eat some crow, and it was like, okay, all right, that was stupid.
My favorite verse of the Bible is probably the one which says, "Upon the wicked you will rain snares; fire and brimstone and burning wind shall be the portion of the cup."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's the reason I bring it up is because I've seen this debate happen even in Catholics. There are lots of Catholics who are they're part of this Church of Nice, cucked Christianity, and that's what they think. Right? And I think that one of the most important things is there's a difference between people who are just unconfident, they're misled, they're wavering, they don't know, and people who are, for instance, I've run into women and, I've talked to them about this and subject comes up one way or another. And they say, oh, well, I could never kill somebody. Well, I know, you pose to them a question. Okay, so if bandits break into your house, and they're going to, rape you and your children, burgle your belongings, and maybe murder your husband, right? And you have to, the police aren't going to be there in time. Are you willing to kill to defend your children? And I've had women say to me, no. Mothers.
Wow.
And say to me, no.
That's unnatural. I mean,
right?
That's
And so the thing is I think that there are two causes for this. One is, and I think this is by far the biggest, signaling.
Yeah, I think
it's not a genuine position. I think that if it came down, the biological urge is so strong that if it came down to it, sure, I very doubt it. I much doubt it. And this woman too, she wasn't that fucked up, right?
Yeah.
But what you have to do is when people say this to you, call them out and say that, wow, you're morally decrepit. You're a coward of a high degree. You're disgusting. What kind of mother are you? Because that's what they just said. Think about this: that they won't die for their children. They won't commit to the nobility that animals do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why they say all this disgusting shit is because they have no longer any connection to what's actually true, what's pure, what's natural. I mean, it's the same with the sodomites. I mean, any person who does not feel an instinctive disgust of what sodomites do, for example, are unnatural. I mean, this disgust is as a result because it's so unnatural. I mean, you're doing your thing in the thing you're literally shit from. That's a perversion out of the creation, a perversion of what you're supposed to do. It ignores everything natural because you can't yourself explain what's intellectually wrong with it or some disgusting shit like that. It's no connection to logos, to God or whatever one you want to call it. And if you don't have that connection to logos, which is this ideal, you can speak for beauty and all that stuff, then you cannot feel love to anything. The only thing sodomites can do, for example, is to burn up in AIDS. That's the only thing they can do. You must have standards. You must have something higher than yourself, because otherwise you will just sink deeper and deeper and deeper. Someone who watches porn all day will become a homophile, and the homophile will become a pedophile. There's no such thing as a slippery slope here, because this mentality of liberal tolerance that detaches yourself from the natural order and from God is the constant.
Well, that's the thing. It's not a fallacy if you actually slide down the slope.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think another source of all of this is just the Zeiger spoke about this at length. The process of becomes incredibly wealthy and incredibly comfortable, and everyone is extraordinarily sheltered from these things, like roving bands of Dindus, gonna machete mob you, right? They can't imagine that actually happening, so it's really fucking easy to signal that they would, be virtuous fucking suicidal bait for that, and say nothing like that, because they've never experienced horror like this. They've never had any real hardship, and when a society reaches that point, the natural process of social degeneration and decay, and people get soft, they get weak, which leads to hedonism, and people, like, we understand that homosexuality and all this stuff is a stance, and it's something that's pretty much only going on in mass in very wealthy, comfortable, sheltered societies. It doesn't it doesn't happen so much when there's a very real existential struggle for survival. It's not a thing. But,
well, exactly. In a good example, it was illegal in the Soviet Union.
Well,
they thought it was bourgeois degeneracy. Yeah, but it's just a reflection, right? That
Yeah.
Right. It's only rich, very insulated people. Yes, people that take part in this. I mean, it's kind of like, you can't really, it's hard to get addicted to a drug you can't afford 5 hits of,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that, hold on, I'm receiving, there's a letter here that you wanted to read, Hans?
Oh, yeah. Let's see here. The fascist mafia to the TRS Mufti. Oh, big boy. Meet devil and damned Milo's kith and kin. Secretary to Grinder Greggy himself. What a sodomite's kind of knight you are. Can't slay Sonic the Hedgehog with your outstretched arse. The sodomite excretes and your sycophants eat. You will not, you sons of a tranny, make subjects of fascist Christians. We have no fear of your troll army. By shitposts and by the Bible will battle with thee, will bog you all. You San Franciscan post-magnet, Afghan Bakabasi boy, brew of AIDS, boiler of New England, conjurer of greater and lesser curses, AIDS pig of Wynerica, Jewish thief, catamite of suburbia, banner of Greve Hans, Natt, Florian Geyer, among others, and fool of all the right and alt-right, an idiot before God, grandson of the serpent, and the shit upon Spencer's dick. Post-pig's fat, faggot's ass, post-house bottom, log pig and scum, cream pyre, your mother. So the iron marchers declare, you lowlife, you won't even be cleaning toilets for the natural aristocrats. Now we'll conclude, for we do not know the reasons and not know about drama. The truth is our wife, the falsehood with thee. 2 + 2 is always 4, no matter what colors you write it with. For this kiss our crosses. Inquisitor Hans of the Fascist Inquisition.
Strong words from the Fascist Inquisition.
Oh my.
Well, nobody expects the Fascist Inquisition, eh?
Yeah, the Fascist Mafia strikes again.
How did that... What just happened?
Yeah, I guess it's a profitable business, downvoting.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you very much for that important announcement from the Fascist Mafia. I'm certain all of our listeners will appreciate stark and uncompromising tones.
600 downvotes.
600 downvotes later, yeah.
Only.
Yeah.
All right.
Like 600 bands.
Yeah, exactly. 600 bands
and
later.
deletions.
Shall we go on to our the first of our articles?
Yeah, but first, it's just a joke, man. It's just a joke.
Yeah, it's all in good fun. It's all banter. So
it's all banter, mate. It's all banter.
We have no
Don't worry.
real hard ill will towards TRS. So
yeah, if you don't see this as a banter, you're obviously an autist.
Exactly.
Now, what was our next topic?
We were going to examine the Trump, the words that he said, the audio clip that's coming out.
The one where he.
Apparently, he says some naughty things about women, and liberals are clutching their pearls, and normal ones that write "slut" on their fucking bare breast that no one should ever see because they weigh 300 pounds. So, yeah, you're not. It's amazing, but I mean, we don't expect honesty out of these people anyway, so we understand what they're doing. But yeah, it's just amazing to me that they're gonna suddenly act like a fucking church marm because Trump said the pussy word when, they're the most vile and vulgar people on the planet.
Yeah, indeed. This is from dailystormer.com, and they're quoting the Washington Post. Donald Trump bragged in vulgar terms about kissing, groping, and trying to have sex with women during a 2005 conversation caught on a hot microphone, saying that, quote, when you're a star, they let you do it, according to a video obtained by the Washington Post. So basically, Trump just talked in the same way that men do in their private times about women. Yeah, it's funny. Like, you read this and it's... men use foul language when they talk about women. That's just the case.
I mean, they don't even have any real argument. I mean, sure, you could argue that it's immoral to commit adultery and all that stuff, which it is, but this is not the point they're bringing up because, as I said, they don't really have any morals. The only reason why they bring this up is because he's successful and they're jealous.
Yeah, pretty much. I wanted to talk to you guys about this. Did you have something to say, James?
I was just going to say this, Anglin's put up another headline on that. It's just, his headlines are perfect to me. Fox Jews, wacky bitch starts crying over pussy grabocost. Dude. This is why
Prime Minister Anglin strikes again.
Yeah, this is why the Stormer wins.
Yeah, this is, he literally went and put this up after he left the recording of this podcast. So, thanks. But yeah.
Kill all those who insult Anglin.
Exactly, the Grand Mufti. Now, I wanted to bring this up with you guys. So, I talked about this a little bit in the last episode of Nationalist Review Online. And it was this idea that if Trump wins, that actually might be the worst thing for us. Because if Trump wins, he's going to strengthen the international control system. He's going to beef up the U.S. military. He's going to be less ridiculous in U.S. foreign policy, less belligerent. He's going to reform the executive, right? All of this stuff. He's going to strengthen the empire, basically.
Exactly.
And so if we, that's the thing. So if we're at the point of no return, where even if Trump, does get elected, that probably this plane is going to be crashed with no survivors. Do we really want the ship to continue along another 35 years?
I mean, the thing about Trump is that he is probably the only man in the United States of America right now who's probably able to mobilize USA for another war. I mean, I can't really see, maybe you will disagree, James, because you have actual experience with this, but I really can't see, normal people following Hillary into a war with Russia or a war in Europe against those evil Nazis and shit.
No, people would lose their shit. No, people aren't going to follow Hillary into anything. Not enthusiastically, anyway. Especially not a devastating war against someone like Russia. I mean, if it's another little like Middle Eastern skirmish, okay, whatever. People will roll their eyes and not give a fuck because we do that every day, right? No, what else is new, right? But
yeah. So I mean. This question is going to be decided fairly soon. I mean, we'll know in a little bit more than a month who the next president will be.
Plus, another thing that's harmful is that Trump actually is liked by many of the, the far-right movements in Europe. And that's very, very dangerous because this can, just be another way of selling us out to Zog again and pacifying what can be the final defeat of the global financial elites. The tanks.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but we can't really do anything about it as individuals. It will take the course it wants to take, right?
Yeah, I don't think either. I mean, people are hyping this election like it's some kind of, apex. This is the edge of the cliff or something. I'm like, no, it's not. It's like neither one of them are honestly going to do anything that drastic. I don't think even if Hillary is elected president, the House and the Senate is going to become even more Republican, and with that, she's not going to be able to do a whole lot. And on the same token, if Trump is elected, I think that he's going to get a lot of resistance from both sides of the House because the Republicans hate him almost as much, if not more, than the Democrats. So, so it's going to be pretty stagnant, and things are going to keep going along just as they have been, more or less, which is admittedly pretty bad. But it's not going to kick off anything big.
Yeah, and it's just been said before that if Trump is elected, we can't let that stifle our fervor. We can't let it quench the momentum.
You can't go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. You need to continue agitating, and that's the thing. That's what's going to be that will be a telling sign. Is if we can continue to agitate past a Trump presidency and continue to push the Overton window and all this, all of the regular stuff that everybody's always has talked about, to death. Then that will, prove the alt-right as a viable movement, and if we can't, then we fail. Just, it's done, right?
Yeah.
Vanguard now.
And if you're James Mason, a little bit of siege here. I mean, this pretty happened with Ronald Reagan. I mean, to a degree, we've seen all of this before. The far right back in the early 80s, was pretty fucking excited about Ronald Reagan defeating Jimmy Carter. And what did Ronald Reagan do? Not a whole lot for us. Not as far as our concerns go. Yeah, right. He did. He gave amnesty to a crap load of tacos. And so there's actually a passage in Siege that speaks exactly to this, and it's like there was all this kind of reactionary buildup after all of the madness of the late '60s and '70s. And then I guess that pretty much elected Ronald Reagan, but Ronald Reagan, of course, was, if not controlled, false opposition, and people projected their hopes and prayers onto this guy when he had no intention or any inkling of what the fuck that was and didn't carry it out, of course.
Yeah. Plus, Trump has time and time again spoken out for sodomites, and he's not a white nationalist at any sense of the word. Yeah. Plus, I cannot doubt how I cannot doubt how true the Overton window even is. Because, if you have someone assertive who says, no, this is how it is, then most people will follow. The only reason why people have the beliefs they have now is because they've been told that these are the good beliefs. And maybe the Overton window idea will work for some people, but for the majority of people, they simply follow what the status quo is.
Yeah. This is the idea, the lemming principle, right? And I want Jesus Christ was calling people sheep long before Alex Jones was. The lemming principle comes straight from the mouth of our Lord. All right.
Exactly.
He says to his apostles, his elite, tend to my sheep, feed my lambs. And of course, and this is the thing is Jesus Christ was under no illusion as to what the true nature of man was. He knows that most people are sheep; they're lemmings.
Yeah, God created man after.
That's the whole notion of Christ as the good shepherd.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is the idea, is that human beings need to be conformed to Jesus, to conform to the logos, the cosmic order, to fascism.
Exactly.
And it's up to the job of the people who can discern this, the shepherds, to feed them, to tend to them, to make sure that they're well taken care of, to support our people.
Exactly. Again, idealism. If you don't have ideals, then you're just heading to hell.
Pretty much. Yeah. To death.
To your own butthole.
Exactly. Well, that's basically what Satan, or what the hell is.
Well, to someone else's butthole as well, I suppose.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so let's move on to our next article, unless anybody... All right, let's move on.
Gotcha.
So this is from dailystormer.com. Was Gandhi a shitlord? Ghana Negro sure thinks so, by our friend Zyger. Contrary to popular belief, Mahatma Gandhi wasn't always about peace and love. This is from Mike.com. The world-renowned face of nonviolent Indian independence movement also believed in racial segregation in South Africa and that Indians were superior to black people. Now, Time reports that a statue of Gandhi will be removed from the University of Ghana's campus after students protested with a petition of over 1,700 signatures and demanded its removal. The petition, addressed to members of the University of Ghana Council, listed 6 racist quotes and excerpts from Gandhi's collected works. One of the quotes includes a letter Gandhi sent to former Prime Minister of England Neville Chamberlain in May 1899 claiming that Indians were superior to Kafirs, an ethnic slur for black South Africans. Ironically, Gandhi was living in South Africa to fight anti-Indian discrimination at the time. Whoosh. This is a quote. Kafirs are as a rule uncivilized, the convicts even more so. They are troublesome, very dirty, and live almost like animals. Mahatma Gandhi. Kafir is basically South African for nigger.
Yeah.
I mean, Gandhi was, after all, good for India. I mean, he threw out the power who kept India down. I mean, Gandhi was kind of like Hitler for the Indians in a way.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there, fam, because the thing is Hitler would have showed up and reinstated the organic Indian governing system that the British left largely intact, the Raj. But Gandhi imposed fucking retarded democracy.
Yeah, maybe I actually don't know much about them. But,
well, that's the thing is the British retained much of the organic local authority structure. They didn't really depose the princes. They just made them work with them, pay them taxes. And India has 1,400 different fucking ethnic groups. Seriously. 1,400.
Wow.
Ethno-cultural, linguistic, ethnic groups, different religions, everything. It's huge. It's ridiculous. India is like the original what happens when Aryans fail. You get India.
Prehistoric America.
Seriously, dude. You get India.
Yeah, that's what I got to look forward to.
Yeah. So that's what happens, is if we fuck up, that's what our children will live in 500 years, is they'll live in India.
Or South America. Same thing there, really.
Brazil, yeah. But, anyway.
You know, I do remember listening to Antifa shits when I was going to university talk about it. Nothing is ever good enough. This just shows the cyclical nature of them eating themselves. I guess Gandhi was extraordinarily misogynistic,
and he beat his wife.
Right, because he wasn't down for third wave feminism, even though it didn't exist yet.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, one of my favorite Gandhi quotes is, contraception makes your wife a prostitute.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, so...
That's not...
Yeah, I mean, he wrote to Adolf Hitler and admired him for a reason, and it's the great irony, right? These, of course, people project onto Gandhi and Martin Luther King and all these people, Nelson Mandela, what they want to see, right?
Exactly.
They're just straw men for the leftist position because they're not around anymore to contest the ideas.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Gandhi would have called your tranny friend a faggot.
Yeah, and would have called Obama a kafir.
Yeah, that too.
Now, we'll move on to the another article. This is also from dailystormer.com. Entitled, Ice Cream Jews Endorse BLM Terrorists. Not content to rot people's teeth with their sugar treats, Ben and Jerry decided to rot people's brains with their Jewish nonsense too. These Skypes will definitely have to go back. Huffington Post. Ben and Jerry's is taking a stance against the police brutality that's been plaguing the black community, and the company want us all to do the same. The ice cream company issued a call to action in a letter posted on its website Thursday and informed readers why this country needs to make sure that Black lives matter. They matter because the injustices they face steal from all of us, white people and people of color alike, the letter reads. They steal our very humanity. The entire company notes that systemic and institutionalized racism needs to be addressed, and that silence around these issues equals complacency in the violence against black people. The only way the country can begin finding solutions to racism is to understand and acknowledge that there is a problem. Blah, blah, blah. It's just, that's... So basically, we pause-flavored ice cream.
I mean, the solution to this problem, as we all know, is a final one.
Only one solution, to be honest, fam.
Yeah.
Right.
So the meme goes.
The term ice cream Jews just made me laugh out loud. That was... somehow I had not heard that one.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know what it's going to take to get to the point where white people... what's going to happen is white people are going to have to be to the point that they no longer give a fuck about the feelings and maybe the lives of black people.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of illustrates the whole point of the current system. It's for the financial elites to grind us down only to grey consumers who will live in our rat cage apartments all day, take these random pills that the doctors gives us, and just keep on working, keep contributing to the system. And when we die, well, we'll just get cremated in the crematorium around the block, and no one will notice because no one will care, because at this point we will no longer have any families.
Yeah, and I think that that's what the end goal is. And I mean, what's there to say? I just I tossed the article in there, but I think it's because it's one other thing in this age of degeneracy we live in, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing, is they want your soul, right? That's what leftism is. It's a totalitarian ideology, and great irony, we sit here as fascists and proclaim it to be so, but yeah, they are, right? Yeah. They want every single piece of economic interaction to conform to their ideology.
Not really ideology, it's just their own wills. I mean, they want to be rich, they want to be powerful, they want to be seen as God, so they try to be it. It's kind of like the living stones of the temple of God, which Christ likens to the church. You should all become living stones in the temple. It's kind of like if some kike would sneak up to this temple, steal some stones, and then start building the synagogue of Satan with the same stones.
Exactly. And this is actually, it brings up a point that I wanted to address earlier, but I forgot. And this is the idea that man is naturally religious. And I think that this is an idea that people don't give a lot of thought to. But human beings, I mean, we're composed of a soul and we're composed of a body. And for whatever reason, throughout all of recorded human history, there's been religious expression. Human beings naturally desire contact with the divine. They believe that there's some sort of reality that we can't see, that's beyond us, that's higher than us. And they want to interact with it. This is a universal fixture of human civilization.
Yeah.
And so what happens is when we don't express this, when we don't express our religious, our spiritual self, it expresses itself in strange ways, because it's as natural as any other bodily function: defecating, eating, procreation. These are all, religious expression. These are a part of what it means to be a human being, inherently. And so when we don't express this, it finds strange outlets. And I think that's what a lot of guys, in some of the guys, not a lot of guys, but some of the guys in the white nationalist movement have done, is they have made the white race their god. In the lack of a real religion.
Yeah.
And they've erected the white race as the idol upon the altar that all things are measured.
Right, and you're right. People will project. They'll redirect these religious tendencies into something else in their life. I mean, we all do it. Leftists definitely do it. They've found progressivism, Marxism, or whatever, to be their religion, and they treat it so mentally. I mean, if I'd be willing to bet if you could put them in a CAT scan, they would, it would appear, the brain activity would appear very similar to that of evangelical, but yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems with nationalism, is that, they kind of deified white people. And I'm sorry, dude, but right now, white people are not really worthy of that. And that's why people flip out at common filth. Because it's become their sacrilege, their heresy to point out flaws and the mistakes of white people, and they kind of they do the whole Allahu Akbar thing when somebody points out that, hey, white people kind of you let the rats in, and you did what they
A
said.
nation gets the Jews it deserves.
Yeah,
Exactly. There's a German philosopher who took up this a lot, and I actually read more or less all his books and made notes on them as well, so I know this guy pretty well. It's Oswald Spengler. Now, his main point is that every high culture, every civilization, every sort of group of nations, if you will, like the Western world, has a certain spirit, a certain idea, which permeates the whole of the culture. Spengler mentioned 3 civilizations and wrote about these the most. It's the Magan civilization, which is, Islamic, Byzantine, Persian civilization, where the idea is that you're like in a cave and you look up and you try to see, what's going on, and you feel like you're in a mystical world filled with things you cannot quite grasp, but everything of this will be from God. Then there's the Apollonian civilization, which was the ancient Roman, ancient Greek civilization, which would focus very much on a certain point. So you got the idea of polis from this, the city. I mean, the ancient Greek, they didn't have nations as we have now. Any attempts at Greek nationalism was just seen as a city's attempt at imperialism. That's what Alexander the Great did. The Corinthian League was Macedonian imperialism. Now, this succeeded very well. He conquered Persia. But in the Greek mentality, this would just be a connection of dots, a connection of cities. So there wouldn't really be a Greek nation, a Roman nation. It would be just the Roman city, and the Roman city exerting its influence on land around it. Now, the last civilization that he spoke a lot about was the Faustian civilization, our civilization. Which would be will to power, a will for the infinite, to go beyond the limits, so to speak. Now, every civilization has a certain lifespan. Eventually it dies, it decays, but it starts out fresh. And this idea, it is often expressed religiously. So, in our civilization, we would have the Catholic Church, for example, the Gothic cathedrals rising towards heaven. Stained glass windows. I mean, when you look up and you see it, it's beautiful. You can't quite explain it, but it's beautiful. It speaks to the European soul, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to sound too pretentious now, because some people say the word Faustian civilization, and then they go on some pretentious intellectualist rant of things that they don't really understand. But
who does that?
Shall I name names?
You can say whatever you want.
Dickie Spencer, Grinder Greggy.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of people. But the idea is pretty same. I mean, if the Logos, the God, whatever, is the source of everything, if you would hold like a prism before the light of the sun or whatever, the light kind of splits up. And that's kind of how it is with high cultures. I mean, all of these high cultures come from the same source, from God. Now, he gifts us this high culture as a gift, and we gotta try to keep it going. But eventually, this is the case. We head into the winter, and during the winter, everything that we created have been analyzed by the intellect. At this point, we don't really have anything more to analyze. We don't really have anything more to destroy, so to speak. Yeah. So what happens then is just will to power. Personal desire to reign over the material. It's Caesarism. Now, some people, when they read some Spengler and read Caesarism, they think, oh, it's cool, it's just like it was back in the old days, but it isn't. Caesarism is just this disgusting drive for more and more power for power's sake, if it's not subdued to the national idea.
Exactly. And I think... excuse me, lost my train of thought. Did anybody else? James, did you have a comment to make?
I wanted to add a caveat to what I said a minute ago about white nationalists kind of religiousifying, if that's a word, their race.
Idolizing.
Yeah, that's a good way. Idolize their race. Now, that's not to say that race is not important. Don't jump all over me for that.
Of course, naturally.
I mean, race is absolutely an integral part of a civilization that works and functions, naturally and organically. But it's only one aspect of it. It's only one piece of the puzzle. I mean, yeah, it all breaks down in multiracialism and multiculturalism, sure, but you can have an all-white country that butt fucks itself out of existence, okay? And if you don't have the rest of the pie, then you're in just as much trouble as if you were surrounded by knobs.
Exactly. I mean, the reason why we have been great, I mean, the past millennia, basically, is because we as a civilization was on the rise. Now we're on the decline. Other civilization has had their rise, and now now they have stuff like ISIS.
Yeah, and I think that that's what it comes down to. Is it a civilization, a worldview? That's the thing. Is Christianity? It's more than just like an idea. It's more than just a religion. It's an entire way of thinking. It's an entire set of principles, just in the same way Islam is. Right? And so Islam very explicitly doesn't think of itself ethnically. It thinks of itself in principles. That's why it can unite all of these different ethnic groups under the Ummah, the tribe of Muhammad. Right?
Exactly.
And Christianity once had the same function, Christendom, that all Christian countries could be united in each other and their power could be channeled to struggle against Islam, to struggle against its enemies. And there was even the point Christians or Protestants and Catholics would put aside their differences in order to struggle against Islam. Right? And I think that that's what it comes down to. Grandpa Lamshanes actually said this on his most recent podcast, and I'm impressed, and I agree with him, is that, you think we're going to conquer this with materialism? You think worshipping the white race is going to be enough to motivate our people to stop Islam? Like, Islam is an existential threat to our civilization, and in the sense that we need mass organization in order to confront it. Like, because if the American Empire deteriorates, how long do you think it will be before another caliphate, a serious one, arises in the Middle East? Not very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and depending on where you are, if you're in a region like I am, you look around at most of the white people here, and you don't find a whole lot of inspiration. Let's just put it that way.
Well, sure. I know. It's funny. I was talking with an Indian chief. And he was, talking about it, is that, how many guys does he have in his community that are willing to grab a rifle and stop a train? More than us. More than us. If maybe, let's say 1 in 25 there would, 1 in 100 of urban white men have the necessary everything to put on a vest and a rifle and to stop a train or to do whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's luckily for us, it's not, it is that 1 in 100 that matter, right? It is that 1 in 5, that small amount of people. That vanguard is typically speaking the men who will create history. And so really it belongs to who shows up. So if we show up and we win, it belongs to us.
Oh, come on, man. We need absolutely everyone that's willing to jump on board.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, I talked about this, it's funny, in a recent conversation with Seventh Son, is that, if we're going to appeal to the democratic process, we're going to appeal to the state, well, yeah, then, you want numbers, right? You want the support of the normies. But naturally, like, normies, they water shit down, right? They normalize it. They degrade its quality. The opposite of quality is equality. That's what democracy does to any idea. It democratizes it by definition, and all the connotations that goes with, And so, if you think that the democratic process is enough to take control of the state, then you're wrong. I mean, even in Germany, kind of what happened is Hitler and the vanguard were successful first, and then the support came second.
Yeah. I can give an example of what's happening right now in Sweden. In Gotland, a large island to the south of Sweden, which belongs to us, of course, has had a gang rape. Now, some Swede confronted the guy who did this, the Arab, of course, and he started yelling, calling him, a dirty barbarian and all that stuff. Now, the whole of Gotland is now pissed at these people, so the police is sending special forces and specially trained policemen and all that stuff, and they're preparing for a mass riot. And things can hit the fan really, really, really fast. And when it hits the fan, you must be ready. And the thing about moving the Overton window, I mean, that's really bullshit, because the state controls the media, at least in Sweden. I mean, the Swedish state literally gives money to private media to support them, tax money. I mean, you can't compete against this monstrosity. You can't compete against it. The Overton window is a lie. The Overton window only works on thinking people, and these thinking people will accept fascism, Christian fascism, if it's explained to them enough.
Yeah, and the way to convince the masses is with propaganda.
Exactly. The Overton window mentality is in the way for the radicalization of the people who must be radicalized.
And it's not inherently incorrect, it's just they have a wrong idea. They think that the way to shift the Overton window is through intellectualism, and it's not, it's through propaganda. That's what memes are, just in case there was any confusion. Right-wing memes are propaganda.
As you shift the Overton window, you're shifted by it.
So, yeah, and I think a lot of people, they talk shit about Andrew Anglin. Oh, he's not sophisticated enough, he's too base, he's too whatever. Well, he's much, much more successful than anybody else. That's because he understands what he's doing. He understands that this is propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you take the... you can get pissed about it not stroking your ego enough because it's lowbrow, but he's beating the shit out of you, okay? And it's for the very same reason that Donald Trump is crushed the rest of the GOP candidates. If you want to, it's because he speaks to the absolute lowest common denominator, and it works because everyone, you might think he's a bit of a buffoon and you think he's inarticulate, but everyone gets what he just said. Everyone. It's not over anyone's head. And this is another problem. I think people like, certain people that have their nice, blessed high IQs and all of that stuff, good for you. But I think that a lot of times they can't help but project the intellect that they have onto people that don't have it. And they don't realize that they're being talked over.
Yeah, it's a fatal mistake.
So, yeah, and people just don't. It's like I used to have a job where it was a I'm a techie, but the company I did IT for was had a lot of mechanics. Right, this is anecdotal, but whatever. Had a lot of wrench turners, guys that went home every day covered in oil and grease. Right, and they were pretty into what I was saying. So, and I sent them to several alt-right websites, to kind of sort of, you don't want to send them to fucking Iron March first, but the one that they all hung on to was the Daily Stormer. TRS was just like it didn't resonate with them. Radix damn sure didn't. Countercurrents, come on, dude. Yeah. No, the Daily they still email me like, dude, did you see the latest Stormer article? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's read Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
Those of you who have I don't even have to explain this. Hitler will. Read Mein Kampf, those of you who have not, and pay attention to what he says on the subject of propaganda. Because he lays everything out in a much better way than we could ever do. Everything Hitler says is correct.
And the other passage about big tents is amazing. It's absolutely amazing that passage is in Mein Kampf.
Yeah, you read Mein Kampf and it's just, I remember the first time it's like, holy shit, is he talking about what we're doing? Is he talking about the alt-right? It reads the exact same way.
Yeah. I mean, intellectualism is just intellect fetishism. Intellect is a tool, not an end goal.
Exact. The mind is not an end in and of itself. It allows the will to be applicated, indeed. Now, let's move on to our last article. This is from churchmilitant.com. Denver Archbishop. Catholics who vote Democrat sell out Christ. The Archbishop of Denver is blasting Catholics who plan to vote Democrat in the presidential election. Archbishop Samuel J. Aquila has said that when Catholics stop being Catholic, the government will step in to fill the void. Indeed, the government will become God and impose its beliefs on the citizens. He's Chesterton posting here, by the way. The diocesan article published on Wednesday, Archbishop Aquila went on to say that voting for a Democratic candidate would be the same as selling out Christ and our fathers in faith. Some, both in politics and the church, have stated that it is the church that needs to change her teaching to include abortion, same-sex unions, and even euthanasia. He said, yet, in faithfulness to Jesus Christ, to the Gospels, and to sacred tradition, The Church cannot change her teaching on these issues without denying Christ. At a speech given Saturday in Washington, D.C., the 20th annual Human Rights Campaign National Dinner, Hillary Clinton's running mate Tim Kaine, who claims to be Catholic, said, "My full, complete, unconditional support for marriage equality is at odds with the current doctrine of the Church that I still attend. But I think that's going to change, too." His comment was met with applause. Archbishop Aquila went on to slam the Democratic Party platform for its anti-life agenda. The platform is aggressively pro-abortion, not only in funding matters, but in appointment of only those judges who will support abortion and the repealing of the Helms Amendment. He commented, which prevents the U.S. from supporting abortion availability overseas. On the same day as Archbishop Aquila's statement, Republican nominee Donald Trump sent a letter to Catholic leaders. "I have a message for Catholics. I will be there for you. I will stand with you. I will fight for you." It continued, "I am and will remain pro-life. I will defend your religious liberties and the right to fully and freely practice your religion as individuals, business owners, and academic institutions." Archbishop Aquila summed up in his article by counseling Catholics to look at how each party platform supports human life from conception through natural death, the freedom of religion and the freedom of conscience, the family and the poor.
I mean, abortion is really barbaric when we think about it. They are literally crushing the head inside the womb and then vacuum clean the small parts.
I would make the abortion challenge to those of you who are pro-abortion. Watch a video of it being performed.
Yeah.
If you like, you can probably look it up on YouTube. If you don't have one, I'll send you a web.
I mean, this is the stuff that ancient Moloch worshippers would do or some shit.
And I just anyway, the thing is that the reason why I see people defending it is it's always a utilitarian argument. It's always, oh well, I don't like abortion, but nigger baby death, basically.
That's Michael Voris, isn't it? I remember him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's good. He used to do the Vortex.
He still does it.
Yeah. Check him out if anybody's not.
Yeah. And you talked about him, so I fucking might as well qualify because I know somebody's going to talk about him in the comments. They're going to say, "Oh, well, Voris is a fag." Okay. Well, we've talked about this before. That faggotry, sodomy, is an action and it's in intent. So I guess Voris, when in his youth, was a sodomite, and he came to the faith and has been completely chaste for 20 years and went to confession, and has actively campaigns against sodomy and the gay mafia inside of the church. He's the only guy standing there calling out all of these homo bishops, calling out of these homos, these gay mafia, saying, "Oh yeah, these guys are gays. These guys are homosexual."
That's very impressive and something to aspire to.
Right, and so I talked about in the last episode of Nationalist Review Online, the very rare circumstance. Well, here's a good example. Right, sodomy is not a fucking ontological state. Being gay is not a thing that you are; it's something you do. And we need to break ourselves of this conditioning.
We're breaking the conditioning. Him. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I did not know that about Boris. Had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, boys. Anything else you want to discuss?
Not that I can.
Not really, no.
This seems like a natural end to the episode. I think it was excellent. Thank you very much for coming on. We had Andrew Anglin. He's not here to see himself out. Thank you very much. Thank you to Spiess, formerly of the Young Whites. Thank you to Natt Danelaw. Thank you to Hans. Greve Hans.
Sig Heil, Christ is risen.
Truly, James Futurist.
Later.
Thank you for coming on. I'm Florian Geyer, your host. This is Mysterium Fasces. Thank you for listening. Shalom. Ave Maria.
Wir sind des Geier schwarzer Haufen, Heia, oh, und wollen mit Tyrannen raufen, Heia, oh, Spieß voran, rauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn, Spieß voran, rauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Als Adam grub und Eva schwang, Kyrie eleis, wo war denn da der Edelmann? Kyrie eleis, Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Uns führt der Florian Geyer an, trotz Acht und Bann. Den Bundschuh führt er in der Fahn, hat Helm und Harnisch an. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Bei Weinsberg setzt es Brand und stank, heia, oh, oh. Gar mancher über die Klinge sprang, heia, oh, oh. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Geschlagen ziehen wir nach Haus, heia, oh, oh. Unsere Enkel fechten's besser aus, heia, oh, oh. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn. Spieß voran, drauf und dran, setzt aufs Klosterdach den roten Hahn.